Committee. Thank you all for attending, and I would like to introduce Chief Murray from the Ayer Police Department. Please, Chief, come and talk to us. And we prefer this doing in a narrative way.
Okay.
For you to just kind of talk to us about your budget and so on. If we have specific questions, we'll ask them. But it's much easier for us to understand from a narrative standpoint your point of view, the things that are important to you. And another thing, if you wouldn't mind, and we've asked this of all department heads, are there things that you would like to have put into your budget that you didn't because of financial constraints? How important are they, and is there some way that we might be able to help with those?
That's a loaded question,
isn't it? Tell me about it. Tell me about it. Lisa looks at me like, oh my God, you're going to ask
I know
it
Lisa's
again?
like shaking over there.
Because we need to balance
Right.
what departments want, and in some cases need.
I understand.
Right.
But in our role as sort of the watchdog for the expenditure of public funds within the town of Ayer, part of our remit is to analyze the desired funds versus the needs of the community and to see if the funding is being applied appropriately and to present that information at town meeting. So that's why I asked that question, to give us an opportunity to do that.
Well, it's not really an easy question. Wish I had more time to prepare. If you've had a chance to look over our budget, you'll see that it's mostly personnel costs. 94% of our budget has to do with personnel.
Yes.
So there's really nothing you can change in that majority of our budget. The rest of it is the costs that we have in order to maintain the department. And then that's all it is. This year we've had a few increases that were necessary in order to to make things work better. And they're mostly in what we call our maintenance agreement line. So that's the thing that other people take care of at the department for us. And for a lot of this stuff, we've tried over the years to keep it in-house. We've tried to use our own folks. But as you can appreciate, as technology and things get more complicated, it takes more and more time, which is time they don't have.
Yep.
So it's time for us.
Skills.
For skills.
Yeah.
So I do have some very skilled people. The deputy behind me is very good with computers. My lead detective is very good with computers. And we try to do a lot of that stuff inside. But again, it takes a lot of time. And it's just time we don't have. So a lot of this we're trying to farm out now to other places to do for us. So that's why you'll see the increases in our maintenance agreement. One other big increase you would see is in, I forget what it's called, the dues and subscriptions line, where there will be a $5,500 increase. Because we joined something called a law enforcement council. It's the Northeast Law Enforcement Council, or NEMLEC. And the reason that we did that, and the reason we need that, is because we can't get the staffing. The town just can't afford the staffing necessary to run a police department effectively. So we have to rely on other groups and other entities to give us the support that we need in case something were to happen.
Can I ask you a question? I hate to interrupt, but if you don't mind, as you go through these things, it's easier to ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. When you say that you can't afford to run the department effectively, what does that mean?
We just don't have the manpower. We don't have the manpower necessary, in my mind, to effectively run a police department for the town.
Okay.
It's understandable we're a small community. Every small community has the same problem. We're not alone. So we look at that, and that is why we join these LECs. There are 5 LECs, I believe, 5 in the state by region. Our region is the Northeast. And they have resources, they have manpower, they have equipment, they have teams, and they're more diverse than any other LEC in the state. So it was a no-brainer, although it's, it is a cost per year. But to have that resource in our back pocket is just enormous.
So is that like a third-party service organization for specific activities?
You could put it that way, right. It's more, it's an organization of police departments. I think there are 53, 56, something like that, and that encompass Middlesex County, Essex County, the other county? One other county just joined, but there's only one town from that county. And the chiefs get together and pool resources. And so it's all those communities and all of those cities and towns that are pooling resources that they farm out to everybody else. The cost is your yearly subscription or dues, however you want to say it. So that's how those run. They can give us SWAT teams. They can give us search and rescue teams. If we ever have somebody that's lost, they can give
us.
Thank you. They have what they call the STARS team, which is a school-based team. If there were ever anything to happen at the schools, they could come in with counselors, with security, with all kinds of resources for the schools. And our SRO is on that team now in order to help us mitigate whatever that situation might be.
So all the towns have joined it and paid this membership fee.
Pay the same fee.
That's how, if they come to Ayer, that's how they get paid for their services.
So that's a different story. So this is just the dues to belong. And then every town has to allocate 10% of its staff to a team. So we have our SROs on the STARS team, and I have 2 officers that are going to go to the search and rescue team.
Is that on-duty staff or communal staff?
Our on-duty staff. Well, it's the department staff.
Okay.
So when something happens and you send your officers who are on those teams out, you pay for it. You pay them their overtime or whatever it is, or in lieu of shift. So in addition to your dues, you also have to pay the officer's time.
I think that's a great thing, and I applaud the police organizations for realizing the need to do that and organizing a mechanism. My question would be then, and Lisa, you might be able to help with this for my sake and the committee's sake, is you get called, your department gets called to contribute resources for whatever the reason, right? And they have to get compensated for that.
Right.
That's part of the process. Is there a mechanism for that resource consumption to be accounted for independently within the budget, or does that come out of the general?
Right.
So we come out of this budget.
So
Just
that
like
means
mutual aid.
okay.
Fire
Thanks.
department is,
Right.
I swear, is out of town.
Don't get him started on that.
But we pay our firefighters and we don't bill the other towns.
Okay. Well,
Mutual aid is
sounds kind of like
it's the same thing. It's mutual aid. Right.
well, I wouldn't
Sounds like
suggest
a-
that you bill the other towns, because that would be an additional cost, and it would be so what?
It wouldn't work.
I mean, so what? What are you not going to collect from them? So why?
It wouldn't work.
But it does bring to a question, and maybe you guys can add a little color to this. Is it seems to me that if that is, and it obviously is, a genuine expenditure of town funds for support of our police department, and I think that's a wonderful. I applaud it. Would maybe it be a separate line item unto itself within the department budget for the only purpose of presenting to the Department of Revenue and to the state costs for police services that are valuable and needed, but outside of the individual town budget that, by a lack of budget, are forced to be put into a pool?
Activity-based
Yeah.
accounting, which
I don't know if that's viable, but it might be some way to get
Line.
state funding in a way to, like, you get some state funding for your collective dispatch center,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Well, I don't see that this is any different than that in context. In execution, it's very different. But in context, you're providing services to other entities because they need it.
To what end would you want to report this to the state? Because
Well-
you're not going to get any money from the state for any of this.
Why not?
Because the state will not give it.
If there was a category within the state budget to contribute to this kind of thing, because it's understood but not forecastable because it's all emergency, right? Then there are contingency funds that the state maintains for all sorts of stuff. Why wouldn't this be, or couldn't this be one of them?
There would have to be some kind of legislation, I think.
Right.
I don't know.
Granted,
It would just,
but it
it's
just
no
seems-
different than mutual aid, and that's pretty much mutual aid is practiced like 5%.
but isn't mutual aid dependent upon the town's ability to fund it?
But that's why it's built into each
Ah.
town's budget.
So
It would
if
be interesting to find out, how often or how
it,
out of town versus other people coming in, but in the end, it's just,
I mean, it's all going to come out of my pocket, your pocket, your pocket,
in
because
the
we're
end, it comes
citizens
out
here.
of all the different test people.
I think that's fine, and it's a great thing, and I'm glad we do it. I'm not trying to find a way to not do it. What I'm trying to do is to find a way, if possible, to begin a conversation about how to quantify the cost and values of services that are critical to smaller communities, because this is obviously, Boston probably doesn't do this. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I know our town does, Groton probably does, Dunstables, the smaller towns, because they just need it when they need it, but they can't tell you when they need it, so you set it up to agree. Well, if that's the case, then that seems to be something that's statewide and not county-driven or town-driven. Just from my own, maybe I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy, and that's an interesting thought, but there is this caveat that this is optional. It is not mandatory. So we have Middlesex County police departments and communities that will not opt in. This town itself, for the 28 years that I was here, refused to opt in because of the cost. It was only the last 3 years that I've worn people down and been able to convince them that
Good
it's
for
a
you.
necessity. So I look at it more like an insurance policy, is what it is. You pay insurance, you pay life insurance, you pay. Someday you're going to need that. You don't know when, but you're going to need it. And that's what this is. So we're going to pay. We will never know when we're going to need it.
That says to me, even more importantly, that it should be a state-provided budget line item. You use it if it's there. If you don't use it, it rolls, or it goes into some other fund. But anyway, I
It's
just
interesting.
It
That's
sounds
interesting.
good.
strikes me
Interesting
as
thought.
It's
something
just that,
that should be adjudicated at a higher level.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe not enough.
Well, they call that the state police.
Oh, do they? And you call them and they say, "And you're who?
Right.
And you want what?"
Which is why we're doing this, because they don't have the resource anymore to help.
I understand that 100%.
I'm sorry.
So, I think that's great. It's just a topic of conversation
No, I like
that's worth exploring. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
Chief, are there
Well, I
any,
know I'm crazy.
communities around us that are included in this as well, that are membership?
In a LEC, so in NEMLEC itself,
Yes.
yeah, there are different LECs within the state, as I mentioned. In NEMLEC itself, in our area, Groton, Littleton, Pepperell, Townsend, Dunstable, Westford, that's getting out that way. That's about it for this area.
It's a nice little group.
It is. And then next to us is SEMLEC, which is Central Mass, a law enforcement council, which we used to belong to, even though we're not in Central Mass, only because they're very cheap, but they don't have anything to offer. So in that group, you'll see places like Shirley and all of the Central Mass chiefs and all the Central Mass communities.
Okay, interesting. It just strikes me as a really good idea that should be uniform across the state. In the case of emergency and need, the state should fund it. That's my personal opinion. Right, wrong, or different, that's my personal
like
See what I wish there was only.
It's different.
So,
It's different.
why not? I have one other question. and-
Sure.
And that is about the maintenance agreement, and you did comment that it's gonna be higher, and it's almost 50% higher this year. Can you color that a little bit? What created that need for 2020?
A lot of that need is related to computers, and let me find my sheet. And the maintenance of the computers, which is a lot of this. It's software, it's hardware, it's radio equipment, and all those maintenance agreements we need to go with our radio equipment.
So this has nothing to do with Cindy's upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10 and...
No. So we're independent from the town on only because of the security that we have and need to maintain. So that's why we've always tried to keep everything inside so that nobody else can see it. About the only other thing, we have fingerprint machines that are digital that we need to have those maintained. A lot of this that's all it is, our copy machine. And a new EMD program that we're going to be instituting.
So another question I have, because computers I've been doing for almost as long as you've been breathing, not quite that long. Would it be practical for the town to have a person who provided these kinds of services to you that doesn't necessarily have to be part of the IT department, but there's no reason why they couldn't, but could control these costs and manage them and keep them documented in the town as the town understands its entirety within the computer structures and associations and security requirements and so on. Is this something that is it seems to me this is a burden for you guys that's outside of your practical skill sets. Is that a reasonable question?
Job, part of our support team. Cindy is, the IT for the town. She doesn't do everything herself. She farms out
I understand.
some of her work, and
Absolutely.
we actually use a vendor that she uses.
Okay.
The same vendor.
Do you like that, Vinny? Do you get?
I'm going to defer to the deputy for that one because he works closely with them.
We do, yeah, very knowledgeable, local,
Dependable.
very dependable. They're always out, same day. And I use the emergency term very, not like, so they have an emergency. It is, and they always respond very quickly.
So how do you
So it's
feel
worth-
about their
So it's worth the
security?
money.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
They've never let us know.
Okay.
If they haven't, we wouldn't use it.
Personally, I tend to agree with something like this. Farming. Contracting out specialty services.
Well, there's nothing wrong with it.
Because they can, and if it's a contract and they have history, then they can, whoever they go out to contract for, they know, okay, they're gonna need $25,000 services. And okay, so maybe something else goes wrong, and then you can need another $5,000 services, okay, yeah, that too. So I
The other piece of that, though, is so a lot of this stuff comes with its own maintenance agreement. So you buy a piece of equipment, you get it from a vendor, that vendor provides you with the maintenance agreement. So they take care of their own equipment. Like our copy machine, our fingerprint machine, our radios, they all provide their own maintenance agreements and take care of those and maintain them. So you get it from the vendor who actually gives it,
right, and
which
you have
is
some,
much better off.
and if you're on a contract, you have some recourse then too.
Exactly.
Oh, I understand 100%. My only question would be, all of that contract management requires resources. None of it just happens. So those resources are part of your department's responsibility, And are they detracting from the primary responsibility of your department, and that is policing the town?
No, it doesn't detract from the
Okay.
policing piece, because my office manager is the one who maintains this stuff.
Okay.
And that's part of her function on a day-to-day basis in our budget, working with Lisa and the other town departments. That's her job, so she maintains all of this.
Does she have a backup?
Yes, so we just hired a record clerk who will be cross-trained. Every job within our department has a cross-train.
Good.
So somebody's always back up to somebody else. We do that for every function within the department in case something happens. So we just hired a record clerk. As soon as she learns those duties, then she'll be cross-trained on all of this stuff as well.
Okay.
As well as budgeting and all of that.
Good. You're satisfied with this?
It's worked out so far.
Okay. Obviously, Chief, you're satisfied?
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm asking questions because I want to understand.
Oh, great questions.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Because this is like the second meeting where I sat in where you specifically talked about, and other departments have mentioned, the fact that you have a hard time finding municipal cops, policemen, right? And so is it a function of people not wanting to go into that profession, or is it a function of the town's ability to pay somebody a salary that would entice them to come? Because then I look at, when you say that 94% of the budget is on personnel, and whether that's salary or uniforms or all that, so it's overtime also. And I don't have a problem with paying people overtime because everybody wants to make money, so, but then people get stretched thin and they get, so I guess I'm asking, what do you see as a solution to that, to try to hire people or entice people to become
These are
policemen?
evidence, so we're all trying to figure it out ourselves.
So
We
it's
don't
not,
know what the anomaly is at this time. It never used to be like this. We used to have to beat people away. We put out a job opening and get hundreds of applications.
so it might not have been salaried.
I personally tend to doubt it has anything to do with that. I think the town compensates its employees in the department pretty well.
Okay.
And has a lot of benefits. It's my perception that it's more about policing today is not a desirable profession. Especially, and I'm not talking about like FBI, all of those high-end policing, but municipal policing is just not very attractive anymore. It takes a special kind of person. It takes somebody who wants to give back to the community. And we have some great people on the whole who want to do that. And that's what drives that. Even beyond money and all that. It's that desire to be helpful and help somebody in need. And that's all. Everybody in need is something.
Your point about the non-general person wanting to get into that, I think you struck something that I hadn't really considered, and that is there's an awful lot of news that paints the typical municipal police department and participant as in a negative light for whatever the reason. And I think that colors people unreasonably because of the news and the way that it's presented, which makes your job much harder to attract people to say, no, that's not how we do things. And I would guess that there's some percent, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to extrapolate that there is a percentage of people that might be inclined to participate that choose not to simply because of what I'm going to use the word stigma, and it might not be an appropriate word, but it certainly is definitive and use. I know you understand what I'm saying. To that kind of a vocation. And I had never really considered that before, but I see exactly what you're saying.
And there's a lot of that out there. And also understand that there's a lot of competition. All towns, all cities, they call it the Elmy Clubs. So we're in competition with all of those places to try to get people, as well as the state police. So it's not just, us looking, but it's Middleton, every town around us is looking for help, as well as this, so it's, you could probably pick and choose and almost find something like that.
So your budget line for overtime is based on being down an officer?
No, that's just our overtime budget. That remains constant throughout the year. If you understand, if you knew, we have what we call a 2-man minimum.
Yep.
It's a ridiculous number. It should be very much higher. But there always has to be 2 people working at any one time as a police officer. And all of our police officers have leave time that they're allowed to take off, or sick time, or whatever. In order for them to take that time, sometimes we have to fill their shifts to keep that amount of staff, because we have to have somebody working, and we can't deny them their time off. It's contractual. So we need that overtime to fill those kinds of things.
I guess where I was going at is that enough?
We never know. We never know. We try to guess, and that's our best guess. We increased it, I think, this year by 2%, more or less. We know that we're going to be fully staffed this year. We're pretty sure we'll be fully staffed this year. So it could be down. It's pretty weird to see that. Just wanted to be able to backfill all those shifts. Just so people can take the time.
Right.
Well, one more question, because you've been so gracious with your time and your explanations are excellent. I don't want to spend any more of your time than is necessary.
Well, I want to make sure I answer all the questions.
Thank you, Chief. You're doing a great job, because we've asked some different questions, I think, than normal for finance committee questions. And you've been here for a while. These are not the normal questions, right? And these are very informative for us. One thing I would like to ask, though, is when Chief Pedrazi was here, part of our conversation with him was that he has a hard time filling positions because it's hard for his crews to be able to afford to live here. And they have to live farther away than he would like them to, or than maybe they should. Is that a problem that you find as well? That it's hard for your folks? We thank you guys very much for doing what you do. I really appreciate it. Being able to live here, is that a problem?
I have never heard that that's a problem.
Okay.
My guys can live wherever they want, and that's by contractual agreement some years ago. So whether or not that's an impediment, I don't know, but I don't think so. Okay. I have people who live out in far away. Very far away.
Far away. That's a New Hampshire.
Personally, I lived in Norton. I lived in Norton and commuted.
Okay.
When I was a sergeant. For 10 years, I commuted.
Okay.
I never got tired of it. I never, dreaded it. It was just.
It's what you do.
That's what I had to do. I knew when I had to get up, to go to work. And
I understand that.
So I did that, through all the weather. So I don't see that is an impediment.
Okay, thank you for that. It just struck me as an interesting comment from Chief Pedrazi that because he has different requirements as far as geography and his crews.
Right, well, he has different needs. He absolutely has different needs because when the fire alarm goes off, these people got to get there, and if they're living down in Norton, they're not going to get there.
That's hard.
So that's different than ours are not like that. Our people are not on call. They know when their shift starts. If we were to have an emergency and we needed them, we would call them and they would get there when they could get there.
Okay.
But we have other resources that we can pull from as well.
Such as the community that you told.
Or we use our area towns regularly and they use us. So we'll call Groton, Mutual Aid, Shirley, Littleton, Harvard. We all help each other because we just don't have staff.
That's, for me, that's very informative because I'm trying to get a picture of the town's needs in order for it to sustain itself and to evolve and grow, which it is doing. And as we go forward, and we've talked about, the rates of our levy limits and the taxation. So those, they all fit together
Right.
because they all amount to how much money does the town have to spend to support itself with the level of expectation of the citizens. So that's why I asked that question. I'm just curious. So.
I think that for the most part, all the departments are cognizant of those costs, cognizant of the state sustainability. And just like I did not bring in everything that I want, it's not feasible. And we understand budgets. Doesn't mean we sometimes struggle with not doing that, but I think you're going to find that with all the departments. That we pretty much are the same.
I have one more question.
Sure.
It's pretty pointed. Are you getting what you need to do what you know you need to do?
For now, yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Guys, you have any other questions?
Well, it's like before, it looks like we both picked out the same things to have questions about. I did some research on them like before I came in.
Oh, did you really?
And I thought it was I said, yeah, it's a really good idea. I like that. I like that.
It's a great
nice
organization.
co-op. Right? It's nice to have those cooperative firms. And one of the reasons I think that people have trouble getting officers is with all the publicity that's going on. I think people are really realizing it's not as cushy as they thought it was.
No,
It's not riding around and getting donuts.
Right.
Right? You get shot at. Every time you stop somebody, every time you do anything.
That romantic notion of being a law enforcement officer is gone.
Yeah,
Really is gone, and it's a whole different world now.
It is, and I think people are seeing that. There's one, that's a little more dangerous than I thought it was. I grew up with my uncle. My favorite uncle was a policeman. He was a motorcycle cop. He was a detective. And he was a police chief as well. And he went through all those things. And as a policeman, you get a lot of visibility with a lot of people. I mean, he got attacked at the dump, for crying out loud. Just, people trying to shoot him at the dump, just trying to get rid of his trash. So it's a dangerous job, and it takes a devotion to be able to sustain it. You can have one thought going in, but it takes a devotion to stay. It's like being in the military. I was in the military for 20 years, and you guys are in the military. You just don't do that just because you're getting paid. There's got to be more to it than that, because you don't make enough to put your life on the line. So I know I really appreciate everything that you and your guys do. I've seen it. I've lived it with my uncle. And I said, he tried to get me to go into the police department, the Ashford, Georgia. Yeah. And when I graduated high school, I said, I got to get out of Georgia. So I joined the military instead. But I really appreciate you guys for serving. It's a tough thing.
And not to make a joke about it, but it was ironic that I heard on the radio this morning that over in England, they have laid off 20,000 policemen.
It's a huge story. And you'll hear the Prime Minister say that has nothing to do with the increase in knife attacks by juveniles. And the head police, I don't know what they call it, we'll say chief, is vehemently contradicting her. I say, how can you say that? Of course it does.
They have
You can't
the highest
expect
percentage
that
of
volume
knife
of cops
attacks in the
to go and the bad stuff not to start to happen.
So my thought was,
I lived there for almost 10 years, and they love to throw at us about our guns. And I got to throw something back at them, which was always fun. They have the highest percentage of knife attacks in the world.
Because they don't have guns.
That's exactly right.
But yeah, that was an interesting.
and so my thought was, okay, there's a whole pool of individuals that are trained and might be looking for a job. Citizenship might be an issue.
So you're going to deal with
and weapons training might be an issue.
yeah. So you're going to deal with the immigration issue. Maybe not.
Anyway.
Chief, thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for having me here. Lisa, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you guys for coming, and keep doing what you're doing because we appreciate it. Very much so.
Thank you.
Mr. Wetzel, you must be here. I have to say, did you see the Boston Globe article today?
I read it very briefly. We were interviewing architects for the senior center.
I think that's fantastic that it's being publicized.
And it was kind of interesting because I spent about 2 hours with the guy. And he had
Did you?
2 sentences for me, which I said, I don't remember saying that.
Well, you don't live here, so you couldn't take a picture of Lori with Mark.
Well, he left me and went up to
Don't talk to Lori?
yeah.
Okay.
But we took a lot of pictures out of the water treatment plant, and we are working very closely with the Army to get them to pay. They're going to do 2 things for us. One is they're going to put temporary treatment out the well so we can start using it again.
Good.
And we're working out a contract for them to pay once we start construction. They can't cover any costs until we have the agreement in place, but anything after that agreement. So it depends on the timing. So it could take up to 2 months to get the contract in place, but it's a lot better than spend. Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned. I was saying that when we talked. When we were talking with the contract people from the Army, it seemed to me like they didn't care whether it was 4 million, 40 million, or 400 million, as long as we had all the forms filled out and all the right information. So,
well, one of the things, as you know, I'm on the capital committee and been involved in this since the early days, and I've been sending articles to Chris Tillman and to Robert about the things that I read. And I recently saw an article for Barnes Naval Westfield.
yeah.
That's one of the 8 study sites in the U.S. where they're going to actually study what this PFAS issue is. And I have suggested that maybe the town of Ayer should find a way to at least be on an advisory committee or a listening committee or somehow learn from that so we can glean some positive stuff. We spent a ton of money.
The state is in the process of review of coming up with what they call a maximum contaminant level. So they have the EPA has a health advisory limit. The state has a separate health advisory limit. Now they're looking at that. They were petitioned from a couple organizations to lower that limit. So they're looking at that. And I've volunteered part of that group as a water suppliers advisory group. So I volunteered to be on that, and I haven't heard back. Other than, I talked to our contacts at the DEP.
Okay.
We're the ones that are living it, so we know.
Yeah.
And my background is, I've been doing drinking water
for many
treatment for 40 years. So
good.
So I don't just know what we're doing in Ayer and what other systems have. And the challenges, and Ayer's water system is in really good shape compared to a lot of other places. They don't have the staff or the expertise, or like we look at our rates every year, and we raise our rates or adjust our rates as needed. You go to some of these other places, and we haven't looked at the rates in 10 years. Well,
PFAS came back. I'm still struggling with that.
It's a real issue, and I think that the town, more than likely, the preponderance of the citizens don't have a clue. Those of us that are fortunate enough to be sort of in the know of what's going on, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that it's paid attention to. And thank you for your efforts, because I know they're exemplary. But if there's anything that this committee or any of us can do to help you, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay. So now to change subject, back to the budget.
The budget. So I don't know how you were organizing this. If you want,
it's a narrative, Mark.
Okay, because what I intended to do, and I have a couple slides, but I don't really need to put them up. I could just talk what I was going to say with those.
That would be fine.
And then just kind of walk through how I go about putting the budget together.
That would be great.
So as you probably have noticed, my budget's a little different than everybody else's. So it's really 10 budgets. 7 of them are general fund. and 3 of them are enterprise fund.
Yes.
There's some blanks when I put it together, and I'm not sure which do they have copies you gave them?
For the enterprise funds?
Yeah.
No.
So what I turn in to Lisa and Robert, I highlight them. They're numbers that Lisa fills in on
Indirect costs.
and indirect costs or bonding
You
and
guys might
things like
have
that.
them.
And then we met a few weeks ago and went over some of the numbers. I had a typo with the 0. So it was instead of 1,500, it was 15,000.
That's
Lisa caught and fixed that. And there were some other things like I think the fuel budget we reduced. And that's
Based on
kind of
past actuals. And we never know if it's going to increase the prices, but based on past actual usage, because it's like the charges split between snow and
But what we do is we look from year to year to year to year and the deltas between them, because frankly, as you well know, we don't understand individual line items and why they are what they are. They're just what they are. They have been for history. And so we look for changes that seem extraordinary, up or down.
And I do the same thing. So what I do is I have a spreadsheet that everything's all linked together.
Yep.
And so I put in, and it goes back, in what I print out on it goes back to 2014, but it goes back to like 2006, I think I have historical data, which doesn't really mean anything, but it's all there, so I keep it in there. Then what I look at is I look at my current year's budget. I look at the average of the last 3 full years and average those out and compare those with this year's budget. And then I look at my this year's budget year to date, and then I do a projection. And the projection may be, if it's half a year, then I double it. But there's certain things that, like clothing allowance, we don't pay that. So there's certain things I go in and I adjust when I do that, and then I start to see, is there something weird going on? And if that's the case, then I get the detailed budget and I go through and I go, oh yeah, we had that pump fail and that cost $20,000 and that's why that line item's higher than normal. And then I find out, do we have another pump that might fail? Do I need to leave that in? You'll see in like the mechanic's budget, I go out and meet with the mechanic, we go through all the vehicles and say, what do we need to do to these? And we've had problems with some rust on some of the trucks, and we had to do some repairs. So I have some costs like that put in also. Okay. So I put a fair amount of thought into it. I look at every number, except for the one I added the extra zeros in. and then the town accountant looks over my shoulder and says, maybe that's a little high, or maybe that's a little low.
Mine does a pretty good job. I would say the fuel is a little bit.
You scrupulously scrub your numbers. And sometimes there's a comb broken, right? And it's like, that's okay, that's not a problem.
And then
I'm glad to hear that he just doesn't. A lot of departments just look at what's his budget. Add to that. He actually looks at actuals.
And I'll look at the actual what went into that. See, sometimes I see it might be in the wrong line.
Right.
So, like for instance, we have in water, we have a replace hydrant number, and then we have hydrant valve parts. And sometimes the hydrant valve parts get put in the other line item, so I kind of average those out. You can tell when you're looking at it what's going on. Now, some of the issues with this year's budget that were a little bit difficult to predict. As you may have noticed, we've converted all of our street lights to LED lights. We're going to save a ton of money on that, but I don't know how much because I don't really have the history.
Yep.
And it's hard to project that because we use net metering credits, and we're paying our national grid bills, but we're not always paying our Washington Gas and Electric net metering credit bills in the same sequence. So I might be ahead or behind a little bit. So we have kind of a good idea of what it is, but
they come out in the wash.
They do eventually, but I don't have enough history to know what that is.
That's the issue.
And net metering is.
I got you.
I look at past history, and you can change our Schedule Z twice a year. That's the Schedule Z is what you give to National Grid and tell them which meters do you apply the solar credits to. Okay, sometimes that changes because we add a new meter, or we're not using, say, one of the wells as often, so I should look at it. You know, I have to.
Okay, I
So
got that.
everyone's, and I'm due to do that actually. It's good.
That would have a significant
Right.
shift, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
because of the new streetlights and because I don't think we're using one wells as much as we had. Probably.
Well, we have one well, theoretically, it's shut off, but it's not pumping into the system, it's pumping into the pond, because we're trying to intercept the contamination before it gets to the other wells. So we're actually pumping water, we're not.
You're pumping, but not.
But we're not pumping it, but we're not pumping at the full horsepower.
Yeah, okay.
So, then we also have our new DPW Operations Center administration building. We don't have history on the utilities on that, so we kind of guesstimated. We're just about to break ground on the new highway storage garage. So that will be partially.
Could you say finally there?
Well,
Came in on.
we bid it last spring and it came in $200,000 over budget, and we only had one bid. So we bid it again, and we got some really good bids.
Oh, good.
So
Outstanding.
it's ready to get going. And so we don't have any history on the operating cost of that, but that'll be probably a half of this budget year by the time that's fine. And then also we have same thing with the new PFAS water treatment plant upgrade. It's a building addition. It's about 2,000 square feet, so it's going to have some costs associated with heating, and ventilating, and things like that. There's also in the budget, I think we put in some capital improvements that we do on an annual basis. For instance, in stormwater, we have culvert replacements and storm drain replacements, and we don't have any specific projects identified. I have them written down somewhere, but what we try to do is work with our other projects going on in town. So, for instance, last year when we were doing the Pearl Street water main, we replaced a bunch of drains up there because now next year we can pave it and know that the street's ready to go.
Yeah.
So we're putting that plan together right now. One of the things we're doing a CDBG program over on Prospect and Oak Street.
Okay.
And so we just opened bids on that last week, and we were kind of keeping some of our other infrastructure money in case we didn't have enough in the grant for that. But so I think we're going to use a little bit of water money and a little bit of our Chapter 90 paving.
In your world, fluidity is not only what runs through the pipes; it's how you manage the dollars.
Exactly. And we don't waste money over at the DPW. We're doing, like, for instance, that CDBG project. We designed that in house. It's an $800,000 project. So your engineering fee on that, if you hired a firm, would probably be $80,000 to $100,000 to design it to get where we are now. So Dan Van Schalkwijk, town engineer, bangs that out and did a really good job on it. Same with the highway garage. We had an architect do a lot of it, but we did a lot in house too. We did all the civil drawings. We did all the geotech stuff.
The beauty of that is the money you save. The difficulty that brings to bear is what it would cost if you didn't do it inside is invisible, and that makes it harder for you to justify getting that done. I could not appreciate more the fact that you guys have the skill sets, the willingness, and the capability to do these things. And I don't know, Lisa, maybe at some point in time, it would be interesting if Mark and his department could present a projection of outside cost versus inside cost. Like on an annual basis, just kind of roll it all together and say, look, yes, these things are expensive, but this is how much we don't spend by not going outdoors, and this is why it justifies it doing inside.
And I know on the capital committee, I know the community there pretty well because I've been on it for a couple of years now. I think they would appreciate that tremendously because, as you know, whenever we meet, those questions always come up. Whoa, what is? And if it would just be like, okay, boom, boom. It's like, okay.
So, and that brings up a topic. I know when you were talking to the chief, you were talking about if you need more officers or an IT person or something like that. And I started talking to Robert about that. Not for this fiscal year, but for next fiscal year, I think the town should start looking at having a project manager. And I'll give you an example. The
Are you
police
talking
radio,
about a PME, someone that's a licensed PME?
No, just someone who can just follow a project through and make sure stuff is happening.
We pay a lot of outside engineering folks to do that now.
Well, you know,
Or we don't pay, and I'll give you an example. The police radio upgrade project has dragged on and on and on. And if the town had someone, and I know how to manage projects, and Dan knows how to manage projects, but we don't have time to do that.
No,
but if we had someone, a town resource, who's you give him certain projects and say, okay, get this done, and then he manages the consultants or the contractors or whatever. I think as the town starts taking on other projects, we interviewed architects for the senior center feasibility study today. If that project gets going, obviously you're going to have an architect. You're going to
somebody needs to manage it.
but you need to have what they call owner's project manager on those types of jobs. And so they're not spending 100% of their time on it, but they're following along, making sure stuff is getting done right.
Well, you know, there's several of them around the country, but there's a very good one in Boston. It's a PME Institute, and it's just a book about YAFEC. That if someone, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's a project management executive is what it's called, and you go through a course which takes about a year, and you take tests, and you do it every 3 years. But what it does is it certifies you, and that's the nice. It certifies you as being a skilled project manager without specificity of what the project is. It gives you the process and expectation. Because I've been through the course, and it's rigorous as all get out. But I think I agree with you, Mark. I think that's something the town should seriously consider, because it wouldn't matter whether it was for you or for Chief Murray or for Brazzi or for Parks, whoever it was. If it's a project, okay, here's what we do, and it gives us rigor, which is consistent, which means it's going to give us a consistent expectation of the result. The timing is going to be properly planned, and someone is going to be managing it. I think that's a great idea.
So we'll flesh that out over the next year. And see.
I mean, if you talk to any department, last time it's probably all more manpower, because most of our budgets, almost every single one of them, is for service-oriented organization. Not a surprise that most of our budgets are people. Wages.
This is like the company I work for. We're an engineering company, but we're project based. So it's manpower is, like the chief says, it's 90-95% of what your costs are.
So who do you work for?
A company called Diagnosis Systems out of Westford. We build test equipment for mass transit, mostly military.
And Mark, you're intimately familiar with that because that's pretty much what you do. Yeah. So we could. And as a committee, we could suggest to Lisa and Robert that for the 2021 fiscal year, certainly not for 2020, it's too late, right? That the dollars that we pay today for the town planner are pretty much equivalent to what you would expect to pay for a reasonably qualified PME. To bring in a PME that would manage these things, and it could be a service entity for all of your departments. Now, I think that's a really good idea, because we could save a heck of a lot of money.
Well, we did when we hired the town engineer position.
we went through that same process with what would he do, what would that offset from hiring consultants to do, and it was a lot of it was a financial analysis.
Absolutely.
And then we have to, because Robert and I, we have pressure from the administration
Of course you do.
not to grow the budget or to grow it only as and so then we, like I said, it's not easy to balance everybody's needs against sustainability and what other people think the budget should look like.
Well, if you're spending $2 for a function, and you can replace the function's efficacy for $1,
Oh, I get it.
that's worth doing, as
Absolutely.
you well know.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what Mark is saying, is that we spend as a town a lot of money on functions that if we had the service capability, as you said, we're a service organization, internally, it could service all departments because it's not specific to any one. It's a rigor, it's a discipline that's executed and processed. And the nice thing about a professional project manager is there's a schedule and a plan, and it's easily followed and understood.
Well, there's other things too. There's types of contracts, right? That you put projects on. So if you farm out a project like an upgrade, one could argue that could be a finite time.
Right.
And you could have gates and you could have incentives for the contractor to meet that. So it wouldn't go on forever. And I guess what I'm saying is I agree with having a project manager, but you might not need a project manager if you had a different type of contract.
Absolutely, yes.
On a contract, it just might be, you're looking at his cost schedule and performance on a spreadsheet, and if he's, over budget for where he is on schedule, then there may be something wrong, right? So he's going to go over budget maybe by the end of why, whatever he rated. So
There's times
I'm just
when
saying.
there's times like, for instance, our wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. The engineering firm that designed it, they have an inspector on the job, resident engineer on the job, and they have a project manager overseeing the construction. I get very little involved in the project, whereas when we build this highway garage, I'm going to be reviewing shop drawings.
Oh,
I'm
bet
going
you
to be paying pay recs. I'm going to be going out and making sure he's doing the testing right. So that detracts from the other things that I'm doing. But it is a lot of those tasks are finite tasks depending on when the project starts and the project finishes.
And I
So it's
don't know if you were here when I asked the chief this kind of question, because he has to farm out some of his work and his, it may be worth it to pay somebody else to do that, like the waste treatment plant.
Specialized.
Exactly. And so, and I'm not making it trivial, but building the building may be well within your span of time and being able to do it. Because in my business, okay, you're going to get paid so much, you only have so many times a day. What do you want me to do? Town of Ayer, what do you want me to do as the director of the town? I can manage this project down here, or I can go over here and take care of PFAS.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
it seems to me that it would be prudent in analyzing whether a PME is appropriate for the town.
yeah, I think it's worth the
Different
discussion.
communities
Evaluate
like
those.
you and the chiefs and parks and all the different organizations sat down and said, okay, here's a resource. What would you do with it? Right, and just kind of document it and discuss it and see where are the corollaries. If things are like, widely different, then it's like, well, maybe we have a different problem that's not a PM problem. But if they correlate and they align, then it's like, okay, here we go. Here's a space where this can be beneficial. So you don't have to manage somebody building a building. You can do the other things that are more important. But anyway, that's a different issue. I'll bring that up separately.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for raising it.
So I don't know whether you have any specific questions on the budget itself.
Well, Mark, I'm fortunate enough to be in the capital plan.
Yeah.
They go through most of the stuff already. So if Mark and Terry, I'll turn it over to them. You guys have questions you want to ask the superintendent about?
No, well, the only reason that the stormwater management went up so much is because we moved from capital
Yes.
to the top.
Yes.
Because it's a recurring thing, and he had some money in there this year, which he spent fairly quickly. I was actually shocked.
Well, one of the things that we discovered was it cost a lot more to do some of these drainage improvements than what we originally thought. So we did a little project up on Willard Street and ate up most of the budget. And quite frankly, we have a lot up in that whole neighborhood. I was going to pave some roads up there, and I said, let's check the drainage out before we do any paving. And I get up there, and I'm like, this whole drainage system needs to be replaced. So we're...
For years, prior superintendents, maybe not, I'm not sure where you were on this. We were still talking about an enterprise fund for stormwater?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time putting
It's
that
already
together.
part of the assessor,
Yeah.
and the selectmen could never approve a rate structure. So really, the ratepayers would pay for this.
Yeah, I
And a
think
bulk of that would have been the railroad.
it would. Yeah, I put together for that program the fee structure, and I based it on a $350,000 budget. And you can see, we're carrying $200,000. So,
But when I did my math, I don't hear more about what we're halfway through this year, right?
yeah.
And you're only like 16% through the budget. So that doesn't seem too bad.
Well, one thing with stormwater is there's things we do seasonally. So for instance, we clean a catch basins. That's $10,000. We do that in the spring. So that cost doesn't show up yet in what we spent year to date.
Well, I have to tell you that when I was requested to run these budgets, it was November. So there's only 5 months actually for the FY19 column.
And I did it when we went through them. And I actually didn't bring those pages. I went through January. I've updated and projected out, and then, like I said, I look at them and say, "Gee, I haven't spent anything on that line item yet." And if I go that times 2, it's still 0, but I spend 10,000 on that, so I plug in the real numbers. So then when we sit down and talk about it, I have a better idea of where I think we're going to be at the end of the year. And then also one of the issues with some of these storm drain projects or water main projects is we can't do them in the winter. So we get ready in the winter to do them in the spring.
They get compressed.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed, we got a lot of catch basins that are starting to sink around town. The salt gets on them, and the frost works on them, and then we can do a lot of that in the spring too. So we don't have a problem spending the money because we've got a lot of infrastructure that needs.
So how do you figure FY 2019 is going to come out as far as expenses versus budget?
So I start looking at it in January, and then I just got the budgets through February, and I again plug those into a spreadsheet and I start projecting out and looking, and then we have other things that pop up. What was it? I know we had a truck we just had to do about $2,000 worth of work on. Things like that come up that we don't expect.
Right.
And so I kind of plug in those and see where I might have extra or not enough. And then, like I know in the solid waste budget, we're going to have a supplement. And that...
We got a big repair though.
We had over a $20,000 repair on our loader.
Yeah.
Actually, we just on our sewer jetter, we just had a $10,000 repair.
I think sewer might be out.
Yeah, sewer tends to have a little bit of fat in the budget, just because the equipment is so old and we're updating it.
The sewers are so old.
which is that's a future capital.
Yes, I
So,
know. We keep sliding it. Oh, can it last a year? Yeah, it can last. Okay, then we'll do it.
well, we just finished doing our sewer system evaluation study, so now I have some real
Oh, good.
numbers.
Perfect.
And
You're actually starting to do some of the improvements.
we're doing some of it,
Yeah. That's what I
but,
thought.
but it's a big.
We should have some interesting
We got
discussions.
Well, and we do apply for grants on a lot of these projects.
It's perpetual.
Yeah.
There is no end to it.
Not to the infrastructure.
So then a couple of the other things, they're not huge costs. On the stormwater, one of the issues is we have a new stormwater permit that we have certain things we have to do over the calendar year. And so we have a schedule on that. So there's a little bit factored in on that. It's nothing major. It's a lot of tracking information, going out and inspecting things and tracking data, doing some public education, things like that. There's not any real big capital yet, but we do have some costs associated with the permit.
So, are there unanticipated expenses that come from the state or from some higher authority, for want of a better description, that you don't have any choice, you have to execute them, that make it difficult to budget for them?
In the most part, we kind of know when things are coming. This PFAS thing popped up.
Yeah, that was like, oh no.
Because the actual just the testing of the water quality for that is pretty expensive. Now I'm starting to have a pretty good handle on things, and also we're going to work with the Army to factor the additional operation costs into some sort of a payment plan with them. We're not sure exactly how that mechanism is going to work, but the big part of that is the media has to get changed out probably every 2 or 3 years. We're not even sure how long it will take before it needs to be changed out, but that could be pretty expensive. So we'll factor that into the money that the Army pays for.
No, will that be a general fund expense once we know what that schedule is?
Why enterprise fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one of the other issues that affects all of the budgets, and it's not a huge number, but it's sort of unknown, is that we're now required to comply with OSHA standards starting February 1st. And we do most of, we have safe work zones and safety practices, but we don't document everything like we're supposed to for OSHA. So now we have to have policies, forms, reports, training our employees. We have a whole list of
SOPs.
what we have to, and so we're still kind of figuring out that. One of the first things we started doing is we have to collect the MSDS sheets, material safety sheets for all of our chemicals and cleaners and things like that. You go in the garage and you open the cabinet and you're like,
oh my God.
well, there's 2 weeks worth of work. So a lot of it's going to be figuring out what do we really need to do and how do we prioritize it.
So is this effort, you just described something that you have to use your resources
to be determined. I haven't figured it out.
Because that might be something that's...
There might be a senior work off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, did you have a question?
Well, that was maybe it's similar in that when the rules change and you have to abide by those rules now, that costs us money.
Right.
The state doesn't pay for it. The feds don't pay
Yeah.
for it.
Which kind
Schools
of
talk about unfunded mandates all the time, well, it affects the department,
Yeah.
I know. Seriously. Because
Yeah, it's the same. The OSHA is the same question a topic we discussed with the fire chief as well.
exactly.
Yeah.
he was concerned.
But I guess where I was going with it is, do we capture that? Do we capture that difference from there was a law changing effective as of the 1st of February, and before I was spending say $10,000 a year maintaining these OSHA standards. Now they changed it. my workload went up, then I spent another $10,000. Okay.
I don't think there's a log anywhere.
No, we do have
Oh, we do
line
the
items.
budget.
Yeah, we have a line item on safety supplies and training and dues. And so we can see a difference in
You can see that
those
little blip
things.
in the.
What we don't see is, if we have one of our guys spending 40 hours in the garage tracking down all his chemicals instead of 40 hours working
So
on
you
it.
don't have a causal back
So-
end,
Well,
but you got a
It's
dollar
back
back.
to you.
Yeah,
You
it
paid
just
to do
means-
something,
yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah. So I guess you could probably track it back if you really wanted to, but
Yeah, well, again,
That'd be pretty hard.
it's that activity-based accounting.
Yeah.
Where every time somebody does something, they're gonna have to document the activity number, which again gets ridiculous. Exactly.
I did that for 34 years.
I know, and I've worked for organizations that have done that, and you were allowed to take there was a category for taking time to fill out your
The
time card,
country. Yeah.
and after a while, everybody would just go, oh, it's just, especially in the business that I was in, it was just ridiculous.
No, in the consulting business, they call it your either productivity or utilization. It's how many hours out of a day are you billing your client? And they were getting to the point where you'd log in your computer and your number would come up, and if it was over what your goal was, it would be green. If it was at your goal, it would be yellow, and if it was below your goal, it would be red.
Yeah.
And if it was below your goal for a couple of weeks, your boss gave you a call.
Yeah.
And so it's it's another stressful thing for work, but we do capture some of that when, like, for instance, when we have a big storm, we capture that information because we can get reimbursed from FEMA.
And I guess if there's an opportunity to go back to somebody else
Oh.
outside of there.
I think we take
Yeah.
every opportunity we can.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and then FEMA set guidelines. It has to be between this date and this date, and what's allowed and everything. So we do that probably about every other year. We do something with some sort of a FEMA storm.
Declare a state of emergency.
And we just went through it for, I don't even know what storm it
It
was.
was like last year,
Yeah.
because they're a little bad.
we had 3 consecutive nor'easters on 3 different weekends last
Yeah, I
year.
think that
And we
there
just
was
kicked
one
the
of
crap
those.
out of us. It was
Yeah.
like, come on, it's gotta stop.
Yeah. So.
Guys, do you have any other questions for Mark? Mark, thank you
Sand
very
and
much.
salt's a lot of money.
It certainly is.
It's not
I-
played by.
I can't thank you enough for what you do for us. We're lucky to have you with us.
Well, thank you.
So, thank you.
I think that the DPW crew is a really good crew. We've got guys that it's really interesting because I never snowplowed in my life, and I come here and the guy's like, yeah, well, shit, and I still don't snowplow, but I'll ride around with them and see how they do it and everything. And these guys, they're like robots in those trucks. And if you could ask anyone in the surrounding towns, Ayer is the best town around. And you go with these guys, and they just know exactly where to go, where to put the snow. They have a process that they do.
They're very good.
And it's funny because I was out the other morning shoveling my walk in Reading, and I'm shoveling my walk, and I'm watching the plow guy go by. I go, this guy has no idea what he's doing.
The storm we just had this past week, okay, so I go out my driveway onto my clean street, I pull on 119 and I drive down 119. I get to the rotary by the prison. First red light, I'll hit the conker. I had to put my truck in four-wheel drive to go on their 2A through the town of Concord. And when you went through the middle of Concord, when a plow makes a turn, and it leaves that little burn you tell me?
Yeah.
There was one of those about a foot and a half high in the middle of Concord. Really? I was there.
And I was embarrassed when I came on East Main Street and there was a little bit of washboard.
So does the city plow our area?
Yes.
So I've had two issues.
Where
One issue.
do you live?
We live in Pingree Hill.
Oh, Pingree.
So we have a contractor up there, so it's
Yeah,
not one
because
of
it kind of
our
depends on who's plowing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes whoever's plowing it, they don't give a crap. They'll just completely block the driveway.
The berm,
Yeah.
the berm can be awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, one of the issues with Pingree, which is kind of a pet peeve with me, is the roads are way too wide, and so the windrows on the edge of the road are really high because you've got
Yes, they are.
35 feet of road you got to plow.
Yeah.
Whereas like in my neighborhood, the road's like 22 feet wide. So,
Well, whoever did it the last 2 times, the last 2 snows we had, they paid attention and they didn't do it across people's driveway. So I wish I knew what was you. And one other thing, and this
I know why. You know why I know that? Because the guy who usually does it's on vacation. He had someone filling in. That's exactly true.
It's probably why. But one other question is off topic.
Okay.
And what is there any movement or anything happening with the tunnel underneath the railroad track? The tunnel
subway
that we had?
across the
Yeah,
street?
yeah.
No, it'll never open up again. As far as I know, it's.
Yeah,
Someone went
some
down in
rumbles,
it and looked in it, but it's not ADA accessible. We have actually a water main running through it, so it's even hard to walk through. But there's just a lot of new code reasons why you couldn't reopen that. As a matter of fact, when I went to the University of Vermont, and the main street into Burlington, half of all the student housing's on one side, and all the classes are on the other side. So the students are just wandering across the main street all the time. So they built a tunnel under the road with an elevator down to it and everything, and people were worried that women were going to get assaulted in the tunnel, so they put a little police station down there so the police could watch people go through the tunnel, and then they just finally said, you know what, everybody's not going down the stairs over.
They're going across the road.
They just walk across the road.
Yeah.
So
Such good. Like people can't get it.
this out here, yeah, you can't get it. You have to know where the manholes covers are and how to get it. But no,
That's hilarious.
Now I want some kid lost in the top or something.
But there's, like Rick Lindy, he remembers going through there when he was a kid. Those guys with their kids hanging out in there. Charlie Schultz will tell stories about it.
So one of the funny things about a little town is you've got a community of people that have been here for generations, and they know all this history. And those of us that have only been here for a little while go, "You got to be kidding me!"
Oh yeah.
I
An interesting history.
I bought an Ayer book recently on the history of Ayer.
Yeah.
And it's just really interesting. Really
Yeah,
super
ask some of the old time, they're not even that old, about when the base was going. Bars and fights and it was a different town.
My wife's brother is a member of the Canadian military. She's Canadian.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, they came down to visit us after we moved in. And we're driving down Air Road, Harbor Bay. We go by the sign that says, Devens is not available through Mill Creek or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he said, Devens, is that the military base? Yeah. He said, I've been down here 6 times on training over the years. And he had no idea where it was. And it was like, oh. And I said, so Johnny, he said, we got to go look at it. So we go over the base and pull around. But it was, it's crazy.
But this town's really changed a lot, and really for the better. It's really become a pretty nice little community.
It is. It's very nice.
Very diverse, has, both businesses and
It's thriving. And wait till we get the train station in. Oh, boy.
Everybody living in town, but there's also people that just moved here and we have life experiences. So when you said something about you can't do something in the wintertime, you have to wait till springtime. Well, I moved here from Alaska, and so they have to do things year round, and so you'd see them out there in the wintertime. They'll drill a hole. they'll stick a pipe down in there and they'll run steam
Steam,
to fall off the
and
ground.
their pipes are buried 10 feet below the
Exactly,
ground.
to be able to dig down.
It
Because
was in a shower once, so, you know.
you'd be driving down the street and all of a sudden you'd see this big steam cloud and you go, oh man. So anyway, so I kind of,
Where were you living up there?
I was living in Maine.
So you were Kirkland?
That was in New Mexico. Elmendorf.
Elmendorf, yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, every place has its unique challenges and skill sets that you have to. And not to digress, but again, we asked the chief this question about hiring people because somebody in wastewater is retiring and you anticipate that. So, but my question is getting individuals into that position, is it a function of the specialty, people not being in that specialty, or is it a function of salary, compensation?
It's that there just people aren't available.
You're not-
To run our wastewater plant, you have to have what's called a grade 6 operator's license. And 7 is the highest. And so we have 3 operators. 2 of them have grade 6 and 1 has a grade 5. The 2 that have the grade 6 are both going to be retiring within the next 2 years. So I got to get the grade 5 guy to get a 6. David that is a 5. So I got to get him to get a 5, and I've got to find 2 more grade 6s. And every time I talk to anybody in the wastewater business, even private operators, they said that you just can't find that well. Yeah.
So why can't you find them?
Because just people aren't going into the wastewater treatment business. They either don't see it as a career move, or they get into construction and they're making more money. It's just not.
Smell alone.
Well, but then if it could be a function of money, because if you started, if you, I'm not saying that's possible, but right, because sometimes you have to, if you want something, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Because what else are you going to do? Because another answer is, right, you contract that work out, right? And that's going to cost you.
Right.
But if the private sector's having a hard time, that's not feasible.
But then it becomes a bidding contest between towns, and what are you going to do?
Well, one of the advantages to having privatization or having a contract operator is that they can share resources amongst. So in other words, they may be able to have a mechanic that covers 3 different towns instead of each town having a mechanic.
Yeah, the broader base of resources.
And well, it was interesting because I was working with Veolia North America when I was a consultant on a proposal, and I was meeting with their asset management person, and he had such a broad database that he knew if we have this type of pump, I don't maintain it. He says, because it costs this much to maintain and this much to buy a new one, and the statistics just show it's not worth it. Whereas this one, you might want to put $1,000 a year into it because it's an expensive pump. So he had this database that was incredible on every piece of equipment and every kind of wastewater treatment plant. Really valuable having that, and having someone that's what he does. He just manages that, but he's doing it for 50 water systems in throughout the country. So, and then when they do upgrades, he knows what to buy, So those are the advantages to having a private contractor. They have a lot more buying power. You can tend to do procurement a little bit easier. Sometimes you have in their contract that they'll provide certain things that you would normally have to go through some sort of a bidding process on. So there's advantages to that, and then there's disadvantages that they might say, well, we really got to be feeding this much chemical, but cut it back a little bit and save some money. So you really have to have a pretty tight performance spec for it. That's something we might have to look at if we can't start hiring people. And one of the difficulties with our union contract is, so someone says they're going to retire.
So then I have to advertise that within the union for a certain period of time and see if anyone in the union wants that position. And they may not really be qualified for it. You have to look and see what it is. But if they after that period of time they say, oh well, no one wants it in the union, then you have to go out for public advertising. So it could take 2 months before you fill a position. And, so that's a whole other factor in the hiring process.
I'm rolling my eyes at 2 months because I have to hire people in one of my numbers of days is like in the 500 days that this position is vacant. Because it's a difference. It's also a unique skill set.
Right.
But then, okay, what can I pay this guy? Well, guess what? I can't pay him as much as somebody else down the street, and so that's why I'm not getting the guys. That's why it's going to sit vacant until you increase my budget to be able to pay what
The market will bear.
the market will bear. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
But for a lot of these guys, a lot of the guys that work for us, they worked for contractors for a number of years, and they were sick of getting laid off in the winter. The benefits weren't that good. They had families. They weren't. They had to in the summer. They had to work long hours, and they come here. They've got these great construction skills now. We've got 3 backhoe guys that can pick up a dime. We've got one of our water treatment operators used to be one of the mechanics over at KKR. He works on Maseratis. So you've got these guys that have really good skills. You go in the shop and ask some of our mechanics in there on how to do stuff, and these guys David Nelson was the best welder in the state when he was in Boat School. Yeah. So we've got some really talented guys, and they like working here because they have good benefits. They're close to home. They know what their hours are. They come in at 7:30. They leave at 3:30. They know they have to plow in the winter and make some extra money. But it's hard to tell a kid coming out of high school who's going to take their wastewater off.
Mark, thank you.
Okay, you're
It's been a
welcome.
pleasure.
Nice meeting you.
Always. So we have no minutes to review because Mr. Ketchum isn't here. Schedule a meeting to discuss May 13th town meeting warrant, present financing review of 2020. I will suggest that we move that out to another date later when we have a better view of what that's going to be. You guys,
Sounds reasonable.
Mark, with it. Okay. Lisa, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I might agree because Robert just sent me at least
I know.
the bare bones warrant, which is nothing. So,
Yeah,
That's pretty bare.
I saw the same thing. It was like,
you
okay.
That's all. What was he saying?
And we have a reserve fund
You just said it.
tabulation.
Okay. The new director of library.
Oh, no.
This is Tim Silver, the new library director.
You're here early.
I'm a little
A day.
Like 24 hours. And you know why that is?
I thought I would stop in and be presented, introduce myself.
If you guys want, we can do that today. It's up to you.
I don't care. That's up there. That's fine
Gotta
by
sit
me.
there.
It's fine by me.
Are you prepared to talk?
No, I'm not prepared to talk. I was just going to say,
Oh.
Oh, you're going to be here tomorrow.
I'm going to be here tomorrow.
Oh, okay, good.
So you are a glutton for punishment.
No, I just wanted to just introduce myself with the opportunity presented it. Just say I'll be looking forward to talking to you all
great.
tomorrow. But if you have any specific questions that are on your mind right now, let me know, and I'll be even more prepared.
Okay. Well, you saw what we talked with the chief and with Mark, and that's kind of how we go about it, right? It's more of a narrative. We want to understand your cost requirements, what your budget issues are, things that are important to need to get done. How can we as a committee help you do what you do better? And any specific questions that may come up during the dialogue, that's pretty much what we do. And then once we've gone through all of the different departments, we'll meet as a committee and we'll decide what is it we're going to present at town meeting on May 13th. And then we'll put it together, and I will present at May 13th a set of slides of our review of the different departments and the budget and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cut and dried. I mean, if you have specific questions for us, please don't hesitate to ask. We're more than willing to respond as best we can. I mean, we're limited to what we can do. We're a watchdog, as you know. I mean, our goal is to look at the taxpayer revenues expenditure and make sure, in our opinion, that it's appropriate and is in the best interest of the taxpayers of the town of Ayer. We try to do that. We probably could do a better job, but we do what we do, and you know, that's kind of where we are. So thank you for coming. It's a pleasure. And now we know who you are, and when you show up tomorrow, we'll know who you are. Right?
Exactly.
And you're on at 6 tomorrow, by the way.
Right. I know we had a little back and forth with Jeff, but 6 for me.
Yeah, you guys went back and forth. I finally said, Robert, just tell me when. Because I got tired of typing up the minutes and sending them. So, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn the meeting for this evening.
Second. All in favor? Aye. So be it. We're adjourned.